do here? Let's see here. This is an odd night for me to be doing this, but it's the only time that I really had. This week was pretty busy for me, so we played D&D last week, which all one what happened when last we left our heroes. I have this fancy dice box book now, which makes a lot of sound because I have a dice. It's beautiful, and courtesy of my player and girlfriend, Coconut Art, Meg Art. What's your handle now? What's that handle? Meg. Courtesy of Meg. So I have that now for rolling stuff in. It's pretty fun and very interesting. And I wanted to have that visually somewhere before I forgot. So that is very good. Where did we really leave our heroes though? I had to skip a week because of busy work stuff. I'm a journalist by trade, and that sometimes takes up an extra day or two that I'm not prepared for, so I didn't really have the time this week, or rather last week. So we'll do 2 and 1 this time around, and it'll be very good. Or maybe we won't do 2 and 1, because technically I should save one for Tuesday. No, we'll do 2 and 1 tonight, and then Tuesday can actually be something else for once. So here, we'll do 2 and 1. We'll do 2 and 1. Yeah, I like that. So when last we left our heroes, they got on the boat at Riften, at Kirith to go towards Queen's Landing. For anybody who those are just words that don't mean anything. What happened is the party is leaving the starting town to chase after the first clue that they have to solving the mystery of the campaign. And to do that, they're going to go to a bigger city that is out of their league. It's going to be a little bit dangerous for them because it's out of their level. It's like a level 10 area. They're like level 4. But they're like, we'd like to stop through there because maybe we can buy some good stuff. And maybe we're going to be able to hitch a ride somewhere, like on a caravan, or get another boat, or some other form of transportation. And they're right, and that's a perfectly fine and reasonable thing to do. It's just a question of how much risk do they want to take. Obviously, there's not that much risk of just stopping off by the docks and then going about their business, immediately leaving, but I don't think that's what they want to do. They said they wanted to buy stuff, so we'll kind of see how that goes. So it's pretty good, but first, session number 1, which happened last week, was they're on the boat, and basically I'm just skipping time. I'm just like, it's like 3 weeks or something. It's between 2 and 3 weeks for them to get to Queen's Landing. And there's really only 2 things that are planned to happen along the way, and some of it's being kind of randomly generated events, but other stuff was kind of scripted because the world is always moving. The time is always flying. Things are always happening. So they move off towards Queen's Landing down the riverboat, and that's just a lot of fun. The players had enjoyed kind of RPing like what they do on the boat. I wanted to make sure they felt safe on the boat because no one's really going to attack them necessarily. They had a few run-ins with some other things, but that's for later. They just had fun RPing, talking about what they do, enjoying the nights. Gareth is drinking his way through like 4 kegs of ale because he doesn't like being on the water, so he's just trying to be blazed out of his mind the entire time. Drunk, essentially, the entire ride, which is possible. I think he wasn't aware that it was going to be literally 3 weeks, possibly on the boat. Not that it really matters, because, like, as the DM, I just have to snap my fingers and those 3 weeks are gone. But I'm just going to skip to the parts that are important. So what parts were important, though, were them stopping over at a trading post. The first time that they were going to see some randomly generated items in a long while. Every now and then, I'm going to, in between places, I want them to know that there's, like, things that are not always on the map to discover, some stuff to explore and find. So they find a trading post, which is just doing, like, rations and stuff like that. So they pick up more rations. In my game, I'm not really too worried. Travel shouldn't be super difficult besides can you procure something to transport you, and then do you have the rations to eat along the way? And those are really the only 2 things you need to worry about in my game. But some of those things are hard to find. So they buy some rations. They find a few people. There's a fun NPC I had. It was a kobold wearing a cloak, and I don't think that's a super big secret, but I refused to acknowledge that it was a kobold until later. But it was a lot of fun playing the NPC. I was like, "Ooh, yes, come into my parlor. Come see my wares." And they're just generally creepy. But there's a few stuff in there that was sort of randomly generated, just some magic items, low-level magic items, something like that casts Bless and Cloak of the Manta Ray, and I think Brookhill picked up the Cloak of the Manta Ray. They didn't have any money because they all spent their money on leveling up, which is fine, and that's not... I knew that they didn't have any money. I had to put items there anyway, though, that were out of their price range, because I have to simulate a real world. AAA, shit, I missed the start. I mean, you missed, they got on a boat, and now we're at the trading post where they met a kobold that was going to sell them some stuff like Cloak of the Manta Ray and Bless Spell and Magic Missile and a Lantern, some stuff like that. stuff that was really expensive and I didn't think that they were going to be able to afford. But that's not what this game is about. It's about making a real life world that they feel like, well, this store isn't just stocked with stuff exclusively for us. Like other people probably buy things from this Kobold and stuff like that. Oh wait, you're gonna do both sessions in one? Yeah, I am gonna, because this will be the first time I have that Tuesday free to do something else, and maybe I'll stream more of the homebrew design game that I want to work on, but I can never find the time for. So I'll probably do that this Tuesday. And today will be the both. So they it's a trading post. So I try to describe just like the sights and sounds, which they had a lot of fun enjoying. It's one of those things that took more time than it is to describe now, me summarizing, because there's no point in me. It was just a lot of like, what do you see, what do you smell, what do you feel, what do you taste. It was a small camp, essentially. Most of the situations there, it's a tent. But this is the Postmortem stream where I reveal some of the secrets for some of the people who come. So I'll be a little bit more revealing about that. This is a moment for me to explain how the Riverboat Corps kind of has so much power. And it's because that some people have kind of gotten their mindsets of, oh, I'm part of the town, or I rule this city, or I rule this land, or something like that. And the Riverboat Corps, ironically, has focused entirely on like, well, we're going to focus on transportation, and this idea of we're gonna rule the waterway. And so this is like basically a small shanty town that's not a shanty by virtue of people being poor, but by rather of the Riverboat Corps just put in like a cottage. That's the only fixed building, and then for the summer months, people come in and trade wares, and the Riverboat Corps makes sure it stops over there, and that's how they generate revenue. That's how the majority of the money. So the Riverboat Corps is its own private situation. And I wanted to show the idea of like seasons changing, and that there's an economy, and it's not all based around like adventuring, and people are even though this is a very points of light setting where it's like cities are like the point, like civilization is at the cities, and the stuff in between can be pretty dangerous sometimes. But this idea of there are some people who've carved out a living making safe passage. And that there's still trade in this world, even though Winthrow is like a third world nation essentially, and it's not as well developed, and doesn't have like railways or anything like that. There's still trade going on, and so it's kind of a lore stop as well as a market stop. And then they get back on the boat. More time passes. At this point, it's just me kind of rolling dice that kind of determine like how good's the water. I don't want to make it sound like it's arbitrary or random, because that's not really what it is. It's just percentile dice to decide like how's the weather. Like it's just it's a steamship, it's a paddle boat. But like there's sandbars to avoid. There's storms. They're going up and down currents every now and then. There's a lot of issues of like might hit sandbar and beach it, and so I'm rolling for stuff like that to see how long it takes. But either way, it's just a snap of my fingers and you're there essentially. And so we kind of skip ahead to the next cool event, which is along the side of the way, along the rocks. They see some kind of creatures riding lizards. And we, the audience, probably would have recognized them immediately, like either goblins or kobolds or something like that. And they were just kind of creepy, and one was following the party, and I just described it first with just, there's the one creature, and it's watching you from the shore as your ship goes by. It's like, you're like 80 feet away, and they're not going to dive into the water necessarily, but what do you do? And I kind of wanted to hear everybody's reactions, because that's kind of the fun RP stuff, is like, there's some weird situation, some mystery, how does your character react? And that's where the character's gonna kind of define, like, are they suspicious? Like, I think Valerie like reached behind her and like got the crossbow out of her bag. I think she's wearing like normal peasant attire, so she like loads her crossbow slowly. And Brookild is somewhere, and Azarine is the only other one really that notices. And then Gareth's down in the cargo hold, and that's kind of Gareth understood that he was playing his character, which is afraid of water and doesn't want to have anything to do with water and doesn't want to see the water. But it also meant that Gareth was understanding that's like, then you're gonna miss some stuff that happens on the boat. And he was ready for that. So I just kind of went on without him. But yeah, it was interesting to see the party like all being very suspicious, and then like more kobolds on lizards show up and they start following them down the way. And it's at this point I think that I don't know who shot first. It doesn't really matter for story reasons. I think Valerie readied an action. But I think eventually one of the kobolds did make an attack. Where one was like once a shaman showed up and they didn't do anything for a while. I think it was the kobolds, but Valerie had a bolt ready. Yeah, and that's fine, because that's either way, it doesn't really. I'm not gonna hold it against Valerie for shooting first. I'm not gonna be like, because she shot first, there's like gonna be a billion. It's not. I was just kind of in my head trying to remember. But it's interesting that the kobolds did fire first. Eventually, their shaman shows up, and I didn't say that it was their shaman or their priest, but I described like one shows up and they have a strange hat on and they have bangles and jewels that hang from their bodies. The Han Greedo kind of, yeah. Valerie should definitely shoot first. Delicious. But yeah, it was they come out and they have a lantern, and it's similar to the one that the kobold at the previous station wanted to sell them that would cast magic missile. And so when they saw it, they immediately knew what it was, and I don't know if they rightfully or wrongfully assumed that this kobold was somehow in cahoots with those other ones, or if maybe they just have the same supplier. But either way, that's a mystery to be solved another day, perhaps. But yeah, it casts magic missile, but I don't describe it as magic missile. I just said earlier in the tent when they were thinking about buying it, like, oh, it could cast some kind of power, some kind of magical destructive energy. And I want to be vague about it because it's not like the person had like a card that's like, here's what this does. Like the people in the world don't really think of magic that way. It's just sort of like it does what it does. But also he wouldn't want to advertise like to possible inquisition coming through one way or the other, like they selling destructive magical items. But yeah, Valerie gets hit by magic missile, and she's like, "What? I'm super far away," and I'm like, I'm hiding behind I'm behind like the riverboat core, like I'm just peeking over the edge. But it's magic missile, and it just hits. It heat seeks. And I didn't want to just describe it as like, well, it just hits because it's magic missile. So I described them like the arcs, like arc through the air and change different ways and patterns, strike through. They go over the side and hit you like in the back, like they track through the air even. And then everyone was kind of, oh, it's magic missile, and that's when Valerie like fired off the crossbow, and I think hit the shaman like square in the chest, or like, just knocks him right off their horse. And that's one of those situations where the DM is there's nothing that says a crossbow should knock somebody prone or knock them off their horse, but it was a small kobold, and it's not like the party was going to be able to follow up on a downed kobold shaman because they're 80 feet away through the water. So it was dramatic, and it's the better way. So yeah, they knocked the kobold right off the horse on their ass, or off their lizard rather that they're riding. And that kind of stops the shaman. I think the shaman only like fires one or two like things, but this isn't supposed to be a fight. This is kind of just like a weird like testing. Like the kobolds are just kind of like trying to see, like, are these people defended or not? And then the rest of the riverboat core, I already kind of described them. I was kind of I didn't forget or anything like this, but I wanted to let the party have the first move on a lot of stuff before I had the riverboat core do things. Obviously, the party was like, no, I'm just gonna sit here and let the riverboat core take care of it. Then I'd be disappointed because I'd be like, well, hold on. I thought you were a bunch of adventurers, not a bunch of nobodies waiting for other people to do your dirty work. But eventually, like the riverboat core, like has muskets and stuff like that. The one lines up a shot and fires at the kobolds as well, and it skids off the rocks. And it's less about doing damage, more about just trying to scare them away. And they do. The kobolds like kind of hightail it back into the woods, but it's kind of a bad omen because it's like, I think adventurers, especially players of the player variety, the adventurers that are actually manned by real humans, then when monsters show up and attacks are exchanged, the idea is like, man, now we're gonna have a fight, and either they're all gonna die or we're all gonna die. But this is a situation where like it's just a few shots back and forth, and then they just go back into the woods. They just abscond. They escape, and it's sort of like a little bit this uneasy feeling because it feels unfinished. It feels like something's unfinished here, and that's what I wanted. I wanted the party to feel like when we're traveling places, even if it's with the riverboat core, it still feels like dangerous. And also there's some lore stuff behind it as well, because the riverboat core also, I think they even said, they're like, they're never that bold. Like the beast folk are never that, they're not usually like right up against the river like that. So there's some stuff like that as well wrapped up in there. But eventually there's a few bad storms. I'm rolling percentile die to see like kind of what happens, and we get some good percentages. It was like, a 30% chance of bad weather. This is kind of this is not a temperate zone. Wind throw is kind of a pretty strong climate, like one way or the other. So there's a situation where lightning strikes the ship, and that's like really cool and interesting. And it was this kind of RP moment, the skill challenge of like, this isn't a fight. There's no initiative, but like we're gonna go into turn order, and what does your character do to try and alleviate the situation? Like to either like bat out the fire from the lightning, or are you trying to free the guy? They're corporal at this point, who's been the eyes and ears for Gareth, like off the boat, and that they've kind of become friends with and have exchanged a few conversations, like trapped underneath like this burning pile of lumber. The Azarine frees him from that, and he's thankful, and the rest of the party's like using spells to like put out the fire. And I misunderstood a spell like if a party wants to use like a cantrip to try and put out fires or use their magic in some way to alleviate a situation, I'm cool with that. If they use a spell, then it's an automatic success, and like they immediately get one more success towards finishing the skill challenge. Sometimes you just need 3 successes, sometimes it's 4 or 5. But like if you use a spell, it's like that's instantly 1. But Valerie was like, oh, I want to use control fire. I don't remember what the spell, pyrotechnics, they have some spell that lets them control fire. I thought it was just a cantrip, so I was like, oh, roll Arcana. But it turns out it's a level 2 spell or something. And I was like, oh shit, man, never mind. Okay, that retroactively, that was a resounding success, you attempting to put the fire. Pyrotechnics is a spell, yes. Okay, good. I wasn't sure what the name of it was. I wasn't sure if it was just an extension of thaumaturgy, which lets you control like candlelight and bonfires and stuff like that to a lesser extent. So I didn't realize pyrotechnics was something that was like a real spell and not like just a cantrip. Prestidigitation, that's what it is. Thank you. Yeah, people are free to use cantrips in those situations. It's just it's an Arcana check or a Wisdom check, rather than just a flat out success. If someone's burning a resource, like if a barbarian was like, I want to use my rage to like lift this lumber, then it was like that'd be an automatic success. But now they're down one class resource. Which is fine. That's how the game should work. The whole thing is resource management. But they weather the storm, but the captain says that we're going to have to pull off to the side because the storm is too strong. The paddle boat's not enough to fight the current and the winds. Now one of their fighters, their resident fighter is injured. Was that planned? Maybe. Because now that just leaves the party as the main form of defense for the Riverboat Corps' little boat. Captain Lisa's steamboat. And so they pull off to the side, they try to get their rest, they finish up a little bit of their stuff that they're doing, but what comes next is they have to get supplies, and they're going to have to leave the boat, and they're up to the second trading post. There's 2 trading posts along the Windthrow River that the Riverboat Corps is allowed to use. There's more in between, and there's several places that you could stop, get off, go to the nearest town, which might be a trek a ways, but these are 2 trading posts that are just right on the water, essentially. And so that's the situation that they're as. The party's in this situation where it's like, you guys are it. You're going to have to go get some lumber for us. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. Like, half the boat is destroyed, and we're going to need to repair that before we go. I'm afraid about it's going to crack, and we're going to take on water. And so the steamboat's just kind of off to the side. And the rest of the party's like, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds easy. But then the captain kind of warns them, like, do you see that flag off in the distance that marks where the trading post is? And they're like, yeah, we see it. And I described it flapping in the wind, in the storm winds for the past, like, 5 minutes in game. And the captain goes, that flag is supposed to come down at nighttime, implying, and the party got this immediately. They're like, oh, that means there's no one there to take it down, which means something bad has happened to the trading post. And the captain's like, yeah, so you guys are gonna have to go get some wood from there and come back lickety split. And now it's a micro dungeon, if you will. The party departs, the 4 of them, including Gareth. Gareth leaps off the boat. I tried to remember their basic rule. I don't even remember that. That's totally fine. But Gareth leaps off the boat. You can leap a distance equal to your strength ability score. So if you have a strength of just like 10, which is to say you have a 0 modifier, you can jump 10 feet with a running start. You have to have a running start. That's the trick. But Gareth has 15 strength as his score, so he can jump 15 feet with a running start. So he just leaps off the side of the boat and clears the water, which is only like, just a few inches of deep water. But he really doesn't like water. I don't think I was that drunk that session, but well, some people remember one thing, some people remember other stuff. This is micro details. I remembered it because that was a fun moment for Captain Lisa to be like, that was a fun way to say that there's danger afoot, rather than just saying outright, there's danger afoot, having it be like, the flag is supposed to come down at nighttime. Have the flag be like waving ominously off the distance, which usually means there's people, but in this case, it was an ironic situation of the flag means something horrible has gone wrong. And so I have the party roll survival to get through the woods, and the reason I did that was, because later they were going to have to come back through the woods. And really the survival check was to see how well are they learning the woods on the way there. But they didn't know that. They're just like, oh, can we really get lost? We're just going to follow the river. And it was like, yeah, but you guys don't know that when you were coming back next time chased by, well, I won't spoil anything. But it's a future-proof roll is what it really is. But they get into this small village, essentially. A small village with only 2 permanent standing buildings. The Riverboat Corps has like national park-esque buildings where it's like that's where like their captain would reside, and then there's a handful of officers, maybe a dozen on hand that are like the defense, and they do like the dirty work, and that's where also the stables for horses are kept and things like that. And then everyone else that wants to trade at this trading post just brings a tent. They set up a tent, big old tent, big tent, big canvas tent, not like small camping sets or anything like that, but big tents. And these more temporary shelters form the way that people would form their storefronts. But they come in, and those tents are destroyed. There's bodies that look like they've been dead for, I didn't, because this is the Postmortem and I reveal secrets, they've been dead only for like a couple of days. Some even just like a few hours, it depended on who they kill. So a battle had taken place here. Kobolds had come through and just ransacked the place, very boldly of them. And in sheer number, they just killed everyone. And it was that was like only a couple of days ago, and then the Kobolds kind of like ransacked everything on top of that, but they were residing just outside, kind of like waiting for anybody else to show up. And the party kind of walks in, and I have them roll stealth, and it's not great. So the kobolds know they're there, but they're not going to spring immediately. They want to see what they're doing, because they're relatively smart, despite what will happen later in this session. They're relatively smart. So the party continues through the area. They go up to. I wasn't quite sure how they're going to approach the situation. I kind of just described what was there, and I kind of was just waiting for them to describe like how they start looking for lumber. I just kind of remind them like, oh, you're looking for pitch, lumber, nails. And so just whatever you guys feel to do. So Gareth is like, oh, I'm going to approach the main building, and I'm going to go in through the window. And I wasn't really expecting that, but I was just going to play it wherever it laid. I was just sort of like, oh, well, yeah, I know what's in there, and how you get in there doesn't matter to me. So, roll acrobatics to get through the window. It's a big window. It's not that big of a deal. Everyone's inside. They're in an office room that has, it's the captain's office, and there's some literature for them to pick up, essentially like journals of what happened for the past few days before the captain was killed. And Gareth opens one of the doors, and I'm like, are you sure you open one of the doors? And I say a very loaded question like, I'm like very like, oh man, what's up? What could possibly be on the other side of this door? Because I don't really want to surprise them with what's on the other side of the door. I kind of want them to realize that they're in a bad situation where they're not safe. I think they roll perception. Are you sure? Are you certain? Yeah, I don't mind doing stuff like that on purpose to help. Yeah, sure. Salty every time. Yeah, sure, definitely. Definitely, of course. And he did. He definitely opened the door. But first, I think we actually all rolled perception and stuff like that. It was just very poor perceptions. I think Valerie was like, I rolled perception. Of course, Valerie is famously poor perception, so it was like 2. And I was like, everything's fine. So Gareth opens the door, and nobody is surprised when a giant spider leaps out and attacks Gareth. People asked, like, oh, are we going to roll initiative and, like, go to a battle mat? And I thought about it, but I was like, no, I don't think it's any spoiler to just tell the party. I just said straight up, I was like, I don't think that this is going to take you guys long. I don't want to open up a battle mat so that people can kill one spider that has AC like 11 and 6 hit points or whatever. But ironically, that spider ended up being a bit of a trouble. People readied actions for whatever came out the other side. But everyone was like missing attacks. But the spider was missing attacks, and like eventually, I think Brewkill like just smashes it with a fucking fire hand, a small like a fire bolt, some kind of fire spell, just like, and then Gareth stabs it through. But for like a good like 20 seconds, there's this giant spider just like running around the captain's office trying to bite people, and it was kind of scary. People had good imaginations, and so they're kind of picturing some very scary spiders. But I'm not. There's more spiders in this room, but I don't want to turn it into a combat. That's not what this trading post is about. I don't think the spiders are going to be a problem. They're like 1/4 CR. This is a party of level 3 and 4 adventurers. The spiders are dangerous in mass, but there's not even that many of them. It's just they've had some time to move in, so there's a lot of webbing on the other side. And Brewkill's like, oh, fuck it, and just like throws a fireball in, and they shut the door, and it just burns the spiders out. And I describe like you guys waiting for a minute and hearing like screams of spiders becoming dehydrated, and the spider webbing being burned away. I could have rolled to see if the whole building burned down, but I didn't really want to, and kind of honestly, the Riverboat Corps doesn't build such shoddy architecture. Half of my combat action is, fuck it, produce flame. Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that at all. I feel like that's a very good tactic. Especially, like, the whole, like, warlocks are supposed to have, like, really good, like, cantrips that are good in a lot of situations, so I don't feel like that's an issue. Oh, no brand names. But yeah, they burn the rest of the way. They look through and kind of see what happens. And describe that there's a few bodies, and a few have been kind of, like, sucked dry by spiders, but you don't think that's necessarily what killed them, and people are rolling investigation medicine checks. No one got really resounding successes. I don't remember what the numbers were, but I remember it was like if anybody got above like a 16 or 17, I would have given them certain information about what happened, and I don't think anybody did. People went back outside, and people were kind of wondering like, what are we doing here again? Oh yeah, pitch and nails, and let's see what happened here. The rolling investigation, and I was like, battle definitely took place here. There's no weapons left anymore. I don't think we even tried, to be honest. Yeah, it was like it wasn't that big. It was kind of obvious what happened. Everyone was dead, and all the weapons were taken, and everything that was worth. If they had rolled really high in investigation, there would have still been some treasure to find, like a few jewels left over that the kobolds missed, but it was like someone's already stolen this area, and it's not going to take them too long to find the lumber. I got fortunate in that Gareth and Brewkill split up from Azarine and Valerie just by virtue of the way they describe what their characters were doing, just by Valerie and Azarine being like, oh, we go check out the tents, and Gareth being like, well, I'm going to look behind the building and look for the lumber. And Brewkill also, I don't remember exactly what she has to do, but anyway, they ended up dividing it 2 and 2, which is perfect because what this micro dungeon is about and was planned the whole time is that there was going to be a fight here, and the fight was a war of attrition, essentially, where it's Azarine and Valerie, and I describe off in the distance them seeing like eyes like looking at them, and I have them roll basically to see if they get surprised so I'm having them roll to do. I'm giving them the chance to kind of like notice what's coming. But what happens is like there's a spider out in the distance, and that kind of alerts them to the fact that they're being watched by other things. and a couple of kobolds jump out of the woods and charge them. And I just asked them to roll initiative. Gareth and Brookild were good sports, and they were like, "Well, we don't know this is happening, so we'll be over here. But surely, the characters will yell and scream, and then we can join the fight. And we'll have justification to join." But ironically, Azarine and Valerie rolled really well. They rolled high initiative, and they just like mincemeat the kobolds as soon as they show up, which is kind of what I was expecting. I mean, they were real kobolds with like real kobold hit points and stuff like that. You call that being a good sport, not helping your friends? Good sport is in like not metagaming, as in like having my character react to something that they don't reasonably have a reason to react to. That's what I meant by being a good sport. Good sport to me. But yeah, they mincemeat the first ones immediately, and then it's like there's a few more enemies, and Azarine. This is the keynote. What everyone has come to hear tonight is Valerie casts Cloud of Daggers, which is a spell that she got when she got to level 4. Which just happened like last session. And she cast that kind of like right at the edge of where the kobolds are coming from, and she's like, "Oh, this will be good for like the one that's there." And it minces the first one immediately. And that's kind of all that she wanted it to do, was just be like instant damage on that one kobold and just kill it. And I was like, "Oh yeah, it kills it outright." And it was kind of at that point that I was already kind of making decisions in the back of my head about Cloud of Daggers, where I was like, I hope that I'm well known for what I'm about to say. Which is, I felt like I had cheated the player, because I was like, wow, Cloud of Daggers is a high-level spell to just blow on a kobold. A single kobold. Like, yeah, you killed this kobold, but, like, Cloud of Daggers does, like, I don't know, a shit ton of D6s. That, in theory, should have killed that. Like, that's enough damage to kill, like, 4 kobolds over. So I felt like that Valerie had been cheated in that moment. And I wasn't sure how difficult the rest of the fighting was going to be, so I wanted her to get use out of that. So the next part is, after that, every round is just enemy rounds, essentially. And Valerie kind of minced them so fast that when Gareth kind of pokes his head out as a joke to be like, "Oh, you guys okay? I heard something." They're like, "Yeah, we're fine." And that kind of set the tone for the rest of it, where it was like Valerie and Azarine were going to hold the line while the kobolds come, and Brookild and Gareth found wood, but they're like, "Oh, we need to cut the wood into pieces so we don't have to bring back all the logs." Which was... The way the micro dungeon was planned was there was always going to be an objective that they had to finish while the rest of the party defended the person doing the objective. And in my mind, originally that was going to just be finding the materials. But then when Gareth brought up like, "Oh, we really should mill the wood first so we don't have to worry about dragging it through the woods and bringing the extra crap with us." And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And that kind of became the new objective, was milling rather than finding pitch and finding the nails and going through the office and looking for bits and pieces of lumber and stuff like that. So that became the new objective behind the scenes. But it was always planned of this wasn't a normal D&D normal fight of there's a bunch of enemies that show up and you have to kill them all. It was a secret was kobolds and spiders were going to keep coming forever until they finished. Oh my, whatever the objective was. That was the secret. And so then I had the next kobolds show up, and I'm the one who brought this up. So I did this to myself, but I wanted to reiterate and remind that I did this to myself, because when the next kobolds show up, I was like, I'm going to have them roll intelligence. And I had him roll intelligence, and he rolled really low, and I thought it'd be funny. I thought it would be funny if one of the kobolds ran into the Cloud of Daggers, because it's dark, it's rainy, they don't see it. And so he runs into it, and he just gets shredded into 1,000 pieces by the Cloud of Daggers, and it was exceedingly funny. I had expected this fight to be a little bit more darker, dramatic, this fight for survival. Oh, the bloody, like, you haven't finished yet, keep chopping, and like this fight back and forth of the other people while the rest of the people do the objective. But that kind of set the tone to be a little bit more fun and a little bit more of like, let's use all of our cool spells and abilities and kind of go for it, which is fine. It was still fun. The DM's job is only to create fun, and sometimes it's of a different sort than you're expecting. But I was cool with that, and that was fine. And it kind of became a running joke of like every round that the kobolds spawned into existence. Every round, they what it was is every round, every enemy round, more kobolds spawned, and every round there was more kobolds. So every time it was ramping up. And so all it really did was gameplay balance wise, and why I was willing to do it every round was to roll to see. Because I was really gonna say that like, after 3 kobolds get shredded, like they wise up and learn. But the party was like, no, keep rolling, it's fun. And I was like, all right, fine. I'll roll until one of them succeeds, and then they'll warn the rest of their party, and then they're not going to fall for it anymore. But no, spoiler alert, they never did. The kobolds never rolled above like an 8. It was quite awful. It was quite awful for the kobolds. It was a pretty fun and lighthearted session. We put all the drama in the RP. Yeah, and I don't mind that's the way it should be. Some stuff has a natural formation of what the tone wants it to set itself to be. So it ended up being more of a lighthearted jaunt of Azarine and Valerie just like shredding through these kobolds. I ramped it up at one point. It was like it was like 5 rounds, and so like that 5th round, like 6 or 7 kobolds are spawning. 6 or 7 minus 1. That's another reason why I didn't really mind turning Cloud of Daggers into a super blender, was because it was like, this isn't about killing all of the kobolds. This is about finishing the wood. So 1 less kobold every round is not that big a deal, because eventually they will be overwhelmed. Like, it's going to happen. Meanwhile, during the blending, Gareth and Brookill were just casually chopping wood, friendly-ish banter, humming songs. Yeah, Gareth and Brookill, it was funny. The way I pictured it in my head was, once again, that they're going to be like, you go do that and we'll defend the line. And so but it ended up being that Gareth and Brookill literally didn't even know that there was a fight happening. Like, there was never a point where they could hear it over the wind and thunder, and so they're just like, hi ho, like together, just like bonding over cutting wood, or bonding as bonding as those two could ever. But yeah, it was very funny, and they'd like chat in the Roll20, and I really like the Roll20 because crosstalk is kind of it's hard in D&D, especially when you all are just using microphones. You're not even around a table or anything like that, so it's kind of tough. But Roll20 is good because there's that little chat, and so you can like chat like, oh, my character does this while this person is doing that. And that's usually pretty good for especially stuff like this, where it's like, I'm just gonna banter with my fellow party member while I'm doing this, while this other thing is taking place. And obviously, if it was for anything serious than that, I'd just be like, oh, God, hold on, I'm gonna go to you in a second, we'll take turns. But it's great for that. Bonding, as in not trying to rip each other's faces off. Yeah, it's bonding. But I won't go too deep into the intimates of the fight. Fun was had by all. Everyone was having a great time, just like shredding these kobolds to pieces. And by the end we had like a screenshot of like all the kobold bodies that are laid out. This was one of those instances where I was kind of afraid that it was going to become sloggy. But it didn't take too long. Gareth and Brookill cut through the wood pretty quick. They're both rather athletic people for the most part. One's a dwarf, the other one's an orc. Or an orc-even in my setting. So they made pretty good work of like getting all the lumber done, and then they come outside and there's just all these dead bodies of kobolds. But then the part 2 was just getting back to the riverboat core, which is its skill check unto itself. And that was kind of the challenge for me that night, because the issue that I was having was that if they, skill checks just see like, oh, roll athletics, we'll see if they catch up to you. And all that was really going on, there wasn't bad rolls by the party. It wasn't like they were rolling bad and they just kept having kobolds catch up to them. It was like this weird situation where it was like, well, they rolled bad on athletics for a few things, so the kobolds did catch up, but everyone just kept rolling really averagely. Like just super like 11, 9, 10, 12. Like it was just like around there. And so it was sort of like me asking for checks in general. Like, oh, how just getting through the woods, like as a general check, was like they just got these really average rolls that it wasn't difficult for the kobolds to just keep catching up with them and keep hounding them, and the spiders like jumping on Brookill and stuff like that. And it was just like everyone kept rolling really mediocre, very average, and it was just like these. So like I feel like the escape through the woods took longer than it needed to. It was a lot of like I'm not rolling enough to like definitively succeed, but I'm not rolling bad enough to be like dead and triggering a fight where we just kill the kobolds yet. So it was like this kind of middle ground. And eventually it got to the point where I was just like, you guys are there. Like it wasn't supposed to be a skill check. It wasn't supposed to be a combat. It was something kind of in between. I didn't really want to get bogged down in it. So after like a minute and a half of it, I was just kind of like, we get there. Like there's no doubt in my mind you guys eventually get there. There's a few instances of Brookill and getting pulled down, and the rest of the party having to stop to help her. But after that happened, I wasn't going to do that multiple times. Like, it was like, that's good, that's dramatic. Brookill gets tackled by a kobold, and the rest of the party helps her to her feet, and then we keep going. Like, that's all we really needed. We didn't need to do that 4 times. So I made sure that we didn't take forever. It was mediocre enough to take long, but not low enough to be dramatic. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. You got it. You hit the nail on the head. It was just these really average rolls that I didn't have any justification to do anything cool with. Nobody crit failed. And fell over, got swarmed by spiders or something like that, but nobody was like wildly succeeding in getting to the boat and skipping the event. Like, it wasn't low rolls enough to be a scary moment. No, it was just this like, oh, all right, I guess I'll get attacked by spiders for a round. It was like these very like, oh, come on. It was just really like, unfortunately, as a DM, I'm kind of obligated to be like, oh, well, I asked for a roll, and I kind of have to go with it. It was really just medium. Nobody was wounded or anything. Yeah, it was just this no medium rare, no delicious risk of salmonella, but it also wasn't like gritty charcoal that you could really tell your friends about. It was just these really medium stuff is all it really was. So they get back to the boat, and this is kind of where the fun part was, and kind of what I turned like the rest of the encounter kind of like around was this idea of like, okay, now like the two people salmonella, yeah, listen. But the two people defending the other two while they were doing the objective, I thought was cool and interesting and fun. But now at the very end, now everybody, all four people get to have that opportunity to. You guys are defending the boat while they get ready to go, and it's only going to take like a couple of rounds or like maybe 2 rounds. But there's going to be a lot of kobolds on the field, and there's going to be one big boss kobold. And so I plop them all out on the field, and I'm like, you guys are right there. You guys all turn around with your weapons, and it's kind of fun and dramatic to have everybody be like this A-team moment of like turning around. And that was when everybody got to feel that, like, this isn't about killing all the kobolds. This is about just, like, defending the thing for a second. But I really underestimated the party. They have some good survivability. They do a lot of damage. And Gareth was even like, I want to stay and fight this big monstrosity that we got in front of us. And I was like, you can go for it. And it was good. This is where I got to roll absolute crap and hit nothing as usual. Also, you're dropping bits. Damn. Is it the bit rate or is it just the audio? I think it's because I messed with my gain yesterday, and that's probably what it is. I feel like I should take the noise gate off. The noise gate's just causing issues more than anything else. Close threshold. Guess I'll lower these things even more. The open threshold? Attack time. No, like the actual stream stops to buffer from time to time. I mean, I am dropping frames. That's not good. Okay, well, let me know if it keeps up. Hopefully it's nothing too crazy. I've dropped 0.4% frames, which isn't crazy, but that's higher than usual, which is to say higher than 0. But I'm running at like 400 bitrate and 30 FPS, so I don't really know why my computer shouldn't be having trouble. There, turn the. Maybe I'll keep the fans on high. Anyway, am I good now? I mean, it could just have been your connection itself or mine. Yeah, maybe. Networking is weird. I'll just keep going. Let me know if it happens again. And it's too difficult to overcome, or it's too distracting, and it might be I'll have to fix something. But I'll continue. They defend the ship. The ship is going. One of the kobolds escapes through. But I had I wanted one of the kobolds to get through because I wanted to have the riverboat core pull its own weight. I wanted one of the kobolds to get through and get shot down by a musket ball to prove that like the riverboat core can take care of itself, and it usually does. And so this is like kind of out of the ordinary for them. But the party, Gareth was like, when the kobold like slipped through the defenses, Gareth was like, what about this? Like, what about this rule or that reaction or this person's ability? Like, can something stop that kobold? And I was like, chill out, man. This kobold is gonna get shot with a musket in like 30 seconds. So it was funny because it was I had a moment where I could be like, Gareth, chill out, listen, that kobold gets shot. Trust me, man, trust me. Never trust your DM, but trust me. But that was fun. It was this big fight. They killed the thing. I think Brookhill actually did do some damage. She hexed the bad guy, and that was pretty significant. That 20% of what I say during D&D. Trust me. Trust me. But yeah, it was good. They killed it. This was a little arbitrary, but I was like, oh, they killed it. They deserve something. So I added the big shut up, Salty. Chill out, how? Yeah, that's exactly what we usually say. So they killed the monster. Everyone kind of ganged up on it. Brewkill got on the boat, but even Brewkill, I think, fired off a few Eldritch Blasts from afar. So I think everybody was like, yeah, we want to kill this thing. Yeah, we want to kill it. So everyone ganged up on the big boss at the end. They did like 135 damage to it over the course of like 4 rounds or something. So I was like, they earned it. This boss definitely only had that much health. If it wasn't for my inspiration, he would have taken longer. Yeah, there's a lot of buffs at the very end that helped everything pull through. I don't remember all the specifics. This was unfortunately 2 weeks ago at this point. But it was a lot of buffs coming out. Oh yeah, Azrain just being like, you're very tall. you got this. And then going back to the back line to let Gareth like take all the brunt of the force, and him just being like, okay, thanks. But yeah, they killed it. I had a couple of rubies or something fall out of the pouch of the giant monster. That was not planned, but I figured they deserved some kind of reward. And the whole point was that these kobolds had stolen a bunch of stuff from the Riverboat Core place anyway, so it made sense that this big monster had some of the treasure that had been stolen. And that's where that session ended. The next session picked up, and I'll try to make this one quick, was them finally getting to Queen's Landing. I don't remember how many days it took in total, but I don't really care. I'm keeping track of the generalities of like how many weeks are going by and like how many seasons are going by. And at this point, we're starting to get away from the summer season. And I'm also caring about like rations of like, oh, mark down 5 rations. But after I say like, oh, it's been 5 days, mark down 5 rations, I immediately forget what I just said. So it was just a case of like remembering rations and making sure that it was like, I don't remember what it was, but it took around 3 weeks for them to get through Windthrow River to get to Queen's Landing, which made sense, and that's how long it should have taken. At the very beginning of the game, when we were doing babies first and we're doing tutorials and stuff like that, they got to Kirith suspiciously quick, and that was noted later when people were trying to plan their route. They're like, well, we got from Fort Dolahan and here like within like 2 days. And I had to just be honest with them, and I had to just be like, listen, I kind of have to retcon and go back and say that it took you guys longer. I was just kind of taking easy on the party because I wanted you guys to get to whatever whatever city you guys chose next to be was going to be the real starting city, and I wanted people to get there pretty quickly. And the other justification I had for like in story, and I didn't necessarily want to retcon a lot of stuff, but it was like, you guys got washed down the river, and so it was really all you had to do is go from the marsh to Kirith. The water did a lot of work for you with the rising tides. But now we're in a situation where I feel like the party as a total is comfortable playing. We're all comfortable playing. I'm comfortable DMing. And now I'm like, okay, no, these distances I actually have like fixed out now, and they're going to take this long. And so I had to be like, yeah, it's going to take like a month if you want to go by foot to go from this place to that place. Once again, a lot of it's just going to be, and we're there. But there's a lot of adventures to be had going from point A to point B, as long as it's interesting and fun. That's all I really care about. But they arrive in Queen's Landing. I described them a lot. There was a lot of Gareth loves to come up with plans and like send me a little message of like, oh, well, we're here. I'm going to look for this, that, and the other thing, and here's my intention. And I kind of thought it was overkill at first, but now I really like it because it kind of lets me have a rough idea of like, oh, okay, I should get this stuff ready. I wrote up some PDF stuff for like the shops of Queen's Landing. I warned them ahead of time that what they're going to show up in is Umbridge Run, which is a sub-district of Queen's Landing. So it's kind of like how there's Manhattan is a part of. He's the only one with a plan, I promise you. Yeah, everybody else, everyone has a plan. They just don't know they have a plan. Like Brookhill, I feel like you knew what Brookhill was going to do when she got a Umbridge Run. You just had it in a more hazy, sort of like, I kind of know what she's going to do, and like you did it in the moment. And the thing is that's fine, and usually everyone's like that, and I usually do a good job of reading people and read what their secret plans are that they don't necessarily know they have. But Gareth just likes to write it out manually, and so I'm kind of like, oh, cool. But yeah, everyone gets the Umbridge Run. Everyone's getting off the boat. I described is kind of like what they see. I rely on your hooks more than anything, to be honest. Yeah, that's fine. You can. I will admit that there's some stuff that only exists because Gareth goes out of his way to tell me like one plan or another. So like there are some times where I kind of like I try to prompt the party to be like, if there's anything you were looking for, like let me know ahead of time, because otherwise I might. It's not that it doesn't exist, it's just that I might not plan it or describe it when I should, and I don't hook them properly, and it's because I don't realize that the party wants that. But everything worked out fine for this case. It was great. We got to Queen's Landing, I described them getting off the boat, the captain thanks them. He's kind of a hard ass, so he gives them a bit of a hard time, even Gareth especially, but Gareth kind of wins them over because Gareth is like whittling. He's trying to like learn carpenter's tools, and so he's like making ducks and things like that, so he gives the dog a carving of the dog to the captain. The captain cherishes it. And that kind of warms them up pretty quickly. But they depart. They say, like, oh, thank you for helping. We'll give you a reward tomorrow for helping clean up the trade route. And that was a DM secret. That was a test to see if they were going to be willing to stay in Queen's Landing. That was me immediately showing them, like, the longer you stay, the more opportunity there is for reward and treasure. But also, I don't know how long you guys wanted to stay. I just wanted to let them know, like, right off the bat. Like, there's money to be had in this place. And so this is like a specific example of like the Riverboat Corps is thankful that you cleared out that trading post and got them safely down the river. So they're going to give you a reward if you'll stay until tomorrow. And that was kind of a test of like, will you stay until tomorrow? And the answer was, yeah, they were. They go through some of the stores and stalls. I describe kind of like this big city. I have a lot of fun describing the new areas that they go to. I think that the party enjoys it as well. I don't think I make them long-winded. I try to keep them precise. I try to keep them concise. I try to give them a little bit of everything. They're kind of like RP hooks where like sometimes like I think Brooke, I even described like someone's trying to hawk like a sweet roll to the public and is like, oh, saying sweet roll in some kind of accent that I won't emulate because that'd be racist. But their accented way of trying to offer a sweet roll, and Brooke takes it. She's like, yeah, I'll take it, and like offers the 5 silver or whatever, and takes the sweet roll. And so it's like these little RP hooks. And that's kind of why I do the descriptions, because a lot of the players will be like, ooh, that's interesting, and go over and do something, and it might develop into something more, or it might just be a moment for them to play the way their character would be. So I describe this. It's like this big fishing area. And a trading area. It's a bazaar. There's a market. It's the outskirts of a large city that spans multiple islands. There's big bridges off in the distance, the Queen's Landing bridges. Yeah, I bought it because Gareth gave me money last session. Yeah, that was cool. I forgot about that. I forgot it was a result of Gareth throwing money at Brookhild. So it's essentially just a free sweet roll. But yeah, I describe these big bridges, and they're works of art. I try to make I try to have a monument in every location so people have a good can remember stuff easier. Like Fort Dullahan. I think I did a good job. I described the mountain off to the west, like it was like the big mountain to the side. It was in the shadow of a mountain, and then also the docks to the north with all these different ships in port. And that's not super unique, but I didn't really do that for anybody else. And then for Kirith, I tried to describe. It was like, oh, these waterways everywhere, and the fine embroidered details of the clothing and the people and stuff like that, and how I tried to decorate how rich Kirith was with like oil lamps like that line the lanterns that line all the streets. And so for here I was trying to focus on like, oh, these giant bridges that that are spanning multiple islands for people to go across and go to Queen's Landing proper, which is actually Queen's Landing is an island out in the delta of the river, which at this point is just the ocean. But you guys are on the mainland. But it's also like it's a poor district. They roll an investigation. They're kind of worried about pickpockets and stuff like that, and that's a legitimate fear. I might roll a percentile die at some point, and there might be a pickpocket that tries to go after one of their purses. But yeah, they're worried about stuff like that, and they're kind of looking around for a place to stay. I have to kind of just ask them and be like, what are you guys looking for? Like, what's the priority? Is probably I think the best way that I could phrase it, because that implies that it's like, you might find stuff along the way that distracts you, or I might have something that interrupts you, but what is your priority? What is the character looking for? And it was kind of the general consensus was someplace to stay for the night, an inn, tavern. And I was like, all right, sounds good. Everyone's full up here, but you keep going. And it didn't really matter. Like, obviously, the inns being full up in one location versus another that's not a player's problem, but it was a thing that I wanted to describe to kind of reiterate that this is a busy place. And the hotels and the inns that are by the ocean and easily accessible are already full up because it's a crowded area. It was just a lore thing, a world building thing. So they find some other place deeper into the city that is manned by a dwarf. I wanted to get a dwarf in the game because Brookild's a dwarf and she hasn't seen any other dwarves yet. So I had a proper dwarf who ran the inn. It was a small place, and they tried to figure out what kind of lodgings they want. And this was good because it was the first time we could really talk about how lodgings worked. And it was like, well, what are you looking for? Are you looking for like a cheap place, an expensive place? What kind of commodities do you want? Obviously, all those things are based on the cost of living in an area. So like wealthy for one person might be squalor for another. But it was pretty, it was a good thing to sit down and hash out. Like, it's going to be more expensive for one thing or the other. And the general consensus is it's like 2 gold is really enough to live comfortably for a day. And you can pretty much do that everywhere. But there will be exceptions. Like I'm glad, like, in Umbridge Run, that's true. In Kirith, that's true. In Fort Dullahan, that's true. That idea of like there's a chart somewhere and the players can look at it and it's like, oh, well, if I want to live comfortably, it's 2 gold, and if I want to live fancy, it's 4 or 5 gold. But then there are certain places where it's like the DM is enforcing a real world where the economy fluctuates. Like if they try to go to Queen's Landing proper, everything's a lot more expensive there, even just living in an inn. And if someone was like, but the chart says, I'd be like, I don't care what the chart says. This is how much it costs to live in Queen's Landing. And I think the entire party would have been on board with that. I don't think anybody would have questioned how much an inn may or may not cost. But I am very happy that we had this opportunity to talk, like, in general, how much inns should cost and what the cost of living is for an adventure. It's only 2 gold, really, unless you want to spend 4 gold to get a fancy thing. Because this was, once again, kind of like a tutorial. It was just an opportunity for them to visit a bog standard inn, a bog standard tavern, and they were free to spend as much money as they wanted to on lodgings. They could get fancy rooms or squalor rooms or places to stable a horse. And it was a good, a moment for all of us to discuss together, like, what to expect going forward, so that they know when there's a place that's really expensive that it is expensive, and that they're making a cognizant choice to do it for other reasons. Yeah, I remember asking questions about cost of living for 20 minutes. It took a while, but we had to go through it. Yeah, we needed. It was one of those things where it was like, it was definitely a math moment of which happens in D&D, and I think a lot of people get scared off by the math moments in D&D, but they have to happen occasionally, because then moving forward it's really easy to go over later, because it's like, oh yeah, 2 gold I'm pretty sure it is for an inn, and then that way when they say like, well, it's 3 gold, it's like, oh wow, rich blood, do you have a cheaper room, and etc. This was the first opportunity that they had to actually spend money on lodging, so it was once again just a test of economy. My game was I did this kind of on purpose, where it was like Fort Dullahan, they did not have to worry about lodgings. They only had to worry about their class abilities. So it was kind of like a teaching moment if people hadn't really played the game in a while or have never played before. I think everybody had played before, though. But regardless, it was still a new game, and they've never been DM'd by me before. So that was a good opportunity for them to explore. And then Kirith, they didn't have to worry about lodgings because Valerie had a place there, and they could just stay with her. So the only money they had to worry about was stuff that they wanted to buy or services they wanted to procure or leveling up. And now part 3 is now we're in a place where they have to rely on their own money. There's no lodgings they don't have Captain Copperbell to give them free transportation, and they don't have Valerie to rely on for free room and board. So it's just like, this continuing growth of becoming more and more self-sufficient in the game and becoming more and more responsible fiscally for their own money and what they want to spend it with. So yeah, it was a kind of tutorial moment. Did you call it Valerie Land? I don't know. If only it was recorded somewhere. But yeah, they lodge. But it becomes kind of it was a whole session of just that night, essentially. I knew that Azreen and Valerie had some kind of background story thing, like not a feat, but like a background trait where it's like, if I'm willing to play at a place in a city, I'll get free room and board to live comfortably or modest at the DM's discretion. And I knew that they had that, and I had to be like, don't you guys have something that lets you knock down the price of it? Because once again, this was a teaching. This was a tutorial. It was a room and board lodging tutorial. It was me kind of reminding them, like, yeah, I think you guys can actually make free room and board, at least for yourselves, but not necessarily for the rest of the party. So it would only be half the cost. Essentially, you're just having the cost because they're still going to want the fancy rooms. And that's just it, is that the background feat for entertainer is that you can always find room and board, but it's only at a comfortable level. So if you want something wealthy, it doesn't cover that cost. The innkeeper is not willing to put you up in the finest room just because you're playing every night. They'll put you up in a room, but well, I mean, I wanted the fancy room and everyone else rolled with it. Yeah, and I thought that was fine fitting, and to be honest, the fancy room at this place wasn't really that much more expensive, and I wanted you guys to have your own rooms. So I encouraged it. At least I encouraged it by not discouraging it. And I wanted Valerie and Azreen to remember that, like, oh yeah, if we play, then we can do like our own, we can like earn it. What do you mean, unfortunately? That means nobody was there to babysit Gareth. That is also true. And I think at this point we might be learning that we need to keep him on a short leash, so he didn't elope with his new girlfriend. Spoilers. And also his Inquisitor girlfriend. Spoilers. But yeah, it was fun. Azreen and Valerie are like, we're gonna play, and I was like subdividing it into 2 hours. I was like, you only have to really play one set. Like, the background trait doesn't really specify how long you have to play for in order to get free room and board. So I kind of was like, okay, a 2-hour concert seems reasonable to me. And it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It was just a late afternoon concert. And they play, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's see if anybody rolls and gives you some money. And I just used a D12 because this is not a rich part of town, and they don't really have a lot of money to throw around when it comes to like donating. But it hit 12 almost every single time. Like, I expected it to be like, oh yeah, they might make a couple of gold pieces, three or four gold pieces probably. But no, I rolled a D12 for every set that they did, and they got a 12 or around there every single time. So they made bank that night, Valerie and Azreen. And eventually they were using inspirations on each other, and every time they used an inspiration, I switched over the die to 2d6s, and then when they used bardic inspiration, I and then rolled well. Whenever they rolled well in their performance, I would add another die, so it was 3d6s or 4d6s. And they were making bank that night. And and then Valerie I'm gonna shred until I'm dead. She was shredding the gnar that night. Yeah, she was going nuts. But yeah, they rolled performance. They had fun being bards. Like, they wanted to be bards. Their characters are bards. They enjoy that fantasy. They wanted to do it. And I warned them. I was like, well, Brookehild and Gareth are probably going to go someplace and explore the city. And I can't, like, if you guys want to stay here and perform, I'm not going to stop you. It just means that you guys might not be present for other things that might happen. And I warned them ahead of time. And they're like, yeah, but we're going to do it. Like, we're going to be entertainers. We're going to be bards. Yeah. And so they were more than happy to do it. They weren't super, in the rest of the stuff that was going on. It was a lot of like me taking turns between the parties, being like, okay, well, you do this, you do that, you do that, and I'll jump between everybody and spend maybe around 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes on everyone, depending on what it is. It's not always a perfectly balanced system, but I do what I can. But they had a lot of fun doing that, just being bards, and they had a lot of fun talking with the dwarf, and the dwarf gave them like a bonus for like doing so well. I think Valerie rolled like a 24 on performance at one point. It's like, that's well above what was required in order to stay here. So the dwarf like gave him a bonus and stuff like that. I personally always liked the turn by turn stuffs. Yeah, I'm cool. I'm glad everyone likes it. It's a nice mix with the 4-player stuff. Yeah, the group stuff versus the small stuff. I try to keep the solo stuff. What I usually find is that I don't have to keep the solo stuff to a minimum. When there's only one person and it's DM and that one player, stuff goes quick because there is no deliberation. It's just that character decides what they do. And so it tends to go very quickly. Meanwhile, the 4-player stuff is like more group dynamics and group decision making on what to do next. And it usually takes longer, and that's fine. That's the expectation. That's what should happen. And I like it as well. So Brookehild goes off. She wants to go sell a ruby that she found at one point. She finds a jeweler. I ask her to roll survival to kind of find her way through the city. I wasn't sure if anybody was going to get lost, but this is one of those situations where I knew Umbridge Run like the back of my hand. I did the work. I planned the city. I knew it was there. And so I was ready to improvise. And improvising is ironically actually doing a lot of planning. You have to do a lot of planning in order to be able to improvise. And I hate to say it, that's the trick. So I did a lot of planning ahead of time I know what's in Umbridge Run, I know what's in Queen's Landing, I know what the bridges are, I know who's here, I know what NPCs are here. And so when I ask them stuff like rolling or survival to see if they get lost, I might know where they end up if they get lost, or who ambushes them, or what have you. It would have been really funny if Brookehild got lost. Yeah, it would have been, but I wanted to let the dice decide. Because it ended up being a lot more. It would have been funny if she got lost, but it was somber because she succeeded. Brookehild also leaves the inn and starts to explore and makes sure she goes the exact opposite way Gareth goes. Yeah, that was funny. Where they both depart and they're like, we want to make sure we have separate adventures essentially. So I followed Brookehild first, or I don't remember who. It doesn't matter who I followed first. The point is I gave everybody their own turn and spotlight. And Brookehild is the one I remember best right now. So she goes off. She finds a jeweler. It's another dwarf. Once again, I wanted her to have some opportunities with multiple dwarfs. This is somebody who recognizes the Arrowwain line, recognizes her noble lineage, wants to talk about it, and kind of gives her a little bit of acknowledgement. But it's also this kind of give and take of, it's like, but it's still a shop, and like there's money being exchanged, so she's not being like super nice. And it's still kind of this moment for Brookehild to kind of be like, oh, I hope my family is okay, because I don't know. I only have the words of other people to go on, but I haven't seen them in a while. So I hope they're all right. But she sells the ruby, and the dwarf. Yeah, the dwarf becomes her grandma essentially. No, you hit it off with the dwarf pretty well. I had Brookehild roll charisma and stuff like that to like see how warm and receptive the other dwarf can or should be. Because maybe Brookehild came in and was like a little cold and aloof, but she wasn't. She was pretty warm. So yeah, she sells it, gets a good price for it. I always find it interesting because it's like jewels and treasures in D&D like will have like fixed costs where it's like, oh, this thing costs this thing costs this. But selling stuff to people is sort of like, well, yeah, but they're not going to buy it back for the 50 GP that's worth, because they're going to sell it for 50 GP, so they wouldn't make any profit. So in general, when people are selling stuff in my game, my party are selling stuff in game, if it's weapons and equipment, the basic thing is it's like, you guys are only going to get whatever the half the cost is. If a lance costs 10 GP to buy, you're only going to make 5 GP. Maybe if you rolled well on persuasion or you're a good charisma, you can get more than that, but like you're not going to get what it's worth to buy. But for Brughild, this dwarf was willing to make a good exception, and jewels in general are the exception. They should and can sell for what close to what they should be, though of course NPCs are always going to try and maybe squeeze a little bit out of them. But yeah, the dwarf gives her a good price. Give him 45 GP for what they're worth. So Brughild actually makes close to like $100 before she leaves that place. I think over $100 because she's still a gold tooth as well. Which the woman would not have been willing to buy if Brughild had rolled poorly on her persuasion checks or her charisma checks. But because it was House Erwin, she was willing to do it. Yeah, 130, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I remember in the beginning of the game, people were like kind of wondering like how money was going to go, especially with my like whole you have to buy the next level up thing. I hope everybody's as pleased with it as I am. I feel like people still make quite a good chunk of change. And feel like they're comfortable financially, because this wasn't supposed to be like a squalor simulator. It was actually it was the only reason I brought up the level up is going to cost money thing in this game, that homebrew rule, was not because I didn't want my players to have money, but because I wanted them to feel like they had a lot of options to buy, a lot of things to spend money on. So I wanted them to feel like they had options. I wanted them to feel like I had like, oh, I could buy a level up or I could buy a magic weapon. Like I wanted to, the fact that leveling up was going to be a guaranteed way to remove money from the economy and remove it from my players' banks meant that I could go a lot crazier with what stuff I was willing to sell them in stores. Which felt good because this was supposed to be a much more, this is a late Renaissance setting, early modern, like trade is hot, like it's easy to find a lot of stuff in this setting. If you know where to look. Obviously, there's a ban on magic items, but that's not going to stop anybody from actually trading in them. It's just illegal. I'm still baffled none of us really took up trade professions. No, I understand what you're saying. Gareth is trying. Gareth is trying to get proficiency in carpenter's tools, and if he gets proficiency in it, I will let him literally use it to make money. If anybody's proficient in any kind of tool, I will let them use it to make money. But that's what the bards do. Azarine and Valerie spent that night doing their job. Like they spent that night at the bar, like performing sets and dancing and being entertainers. And they correspondingly made a lot of money. But they can't always do that because the pitch of the game is that they're fugitives and stuff will catch up with them eventually. I should start having Brughild do like con work. Forgeries. Is she, if she's whatever tool you're proficient in, you are free to attempt to use it for downtime money making. Yeah, totally. Some might be harder than others. Some might be more lucrative than others. I imagine that is the forgeries aspect. It's probably going to be harder to find somebody to buy forgeries, but I expect that it would also make a lot more money. You let me make a copy of Inquisition seals. Yeah. I only did that because I thought you were proficient in forgery kits. If you're not proficient in forgery kits, then I will say, she did a fantastic job of forging that thing that one time. But I think you are. I'm pretty sure warlocks are proficient in forgery. I'll look at some point, or maybe I should just ask Salty. You might have one. I don't think it was an option. We can look at warlocks later. I think everybody starts with some proficiency in some tool, but you might not necessarily start with the tool. So you might have the skills, but you might not have the material. So that might be what has happened here. You might be proficient in forgery kit, but you might not actually own a forgery kit. That actually happens quite a lot because a lot of background features give you proficiencies and tools that your class does not start with, which is fine. I bet that's what happened. I don't think a warlock starts with forgery kits. I don't think that a dwarf starts with forgery kits, but I bet having an aristocratic background does give you proficiency in forgery kit. So I bet that's what's going on here. I bet you on your sheet it says forgery kit as a proficiency, but you don't actually own one because neither your class or your race start with one, but your background gave you the proficiency in it. So you probably are proficient. I remember being proficient in gaming and I had brewer's supplies, actually. Yeah, as a dwarf, you just start with brewer's supplies. I don't know if you're proficient in them, but you just start with them. I don't know. But yeah, in my game at least, this might be, I don't think this is a homebrew rule. I think this is me actually taking advantage of the rules as written in the DM's handbook. But yeah, if you're proficient in a tool, then yeah, you can use it to make money. You just have to find somebody who's willing to pay for the service, which shouldn't be, in a city, not hard. But for bards especially, it's always really easy because like their profession is entertaining people, and there's always people. But for other people, it's more difficult. Gareth is hoping to get carpenter proficiency at some point. It's gonna take him like 40 days or something. Other proficiency. In case anybody was wondering, I am streaming with the the actual Roll20 open for my game. So, Punk Chops can actually go in and edit their character while I'm doing the stream, which is very funny, and she should continue. Brookhild should continue to edit character sheet. We'll look at some point. But anyway, continuing the story. Brookhild is spending the night. I'm going to go one character at a time. Brookhild spends the night kind of wandering around, seeing what there is to see. I described the opera house. So there's a beautiful opera house in Umbridge Run right on the water. It's kind of the Sydney Opera House. Not quite that futuristic modern design, obviously. It's more cathedral in shape. But it has an attached like clock tower, and it kind of like guides people to it like a moth to a flame. And that was a lot of fun because it was like, I know they're not going to be able to afford like an opera. I mean, in theory they could. It's like 40 gold. And while they do have more than 40 gold, I can't imagine them being willing to part with 40 gold to go see an opera. And that was very important to me because I wanted Brookhild to have this like kind of yearning feeling of like, oh, I'd love to go see an opera, but I don't have the money for it. And have even the guards. I wanted the guards to kind of be a bit rough with this dwarf that seemingly has wandered off the streets, but Brookhild up until now had been taking very good care of her appearance, so there's no reason that they would have treated her poorly. And I had her roll like charisma when she was talking to the dwarves, and she rolled really high because she's a warlock and they have really high charisma. And so the guards are actually quite amiable and willing to help her. What time is it? I need to keep an eye on the clock. 8:15. That's still fine. That's fine. But yeah, she kind of wanders around the city and kind of sees what there is to see. It was fun because the opera house was then foreshadowed when the two bards were approached by someone who works with the opera house and offered them a job in like 2 or 3 days' time. I think it was 2 days' time, to be performers at the opera house, which once again is just like a job offer and they don't have to take it. It's just one of those things. It's like, it's a hook. Maybe it goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't. But it's just an option for the players, and they might not even be here in 2 days. But that's not going to stop the world from making assumptions. And that was fun for Brookhild. There was a lot of Brookhild kind of just enjoying the sights and sounds of the city, and ironically doing a good job navigating it. But we had a lot of opportunities of like, some of the party members were like, have I been here before? And I was like, well, roll history and we'll see how intimate, because I bet the answer is yes, but depending on whether it's a higher roll or a lower roll, maybe you're not that familiar with the city, but everyone rolled pretty high. So it was like, oh yeah, Brookild's been here before. I can't find how to get forgery kit proficiency. Well, we're gonna have to check your just let me know what does your character sheet have your background written on it? Because I'll just have to go and check dwarf, the race, and check warlock, the character class, and then check whatever your background is, and then we'll see if any of those noble. Okay, so we'll just go to the player's handbook and just check out if noble lineage lets you start with forgery proficiency. It might even say that you have a forger's kit, and I don't mind retrospectively saying that you've had it this whole time, but you just forgot about it, or we just don't worry about it. And just say you have it now. Either way, no big deal. But yeah, Gareth goes off on his own and travels across the bridge. I kind of know what he wants to do at this point. Pretty much this is no, Warlock has no tool proficiencies. Whoa, that's crazy. Well, a noble only gives me a gaming set. Are you proficient in the gaming set? You must be, otherwise why'd they give it to you? Damn, all right, well, I guess you're not proficient in it. That's fine. I mean, you can still roll sleight of hand to try and mimic other people's handwriting and draw seals, and your character can still be good at that. They're just not proficient, which means that they couldn't add their proficiency bonus necessarily. So I'll just remember that going forward, but retroactively, it doesn't make me feel bad about letting her copy that seal or anything. Dwarf only lets me pick between Smith, Brewer, and Mason, and I picked Brewer. Makes sense to me. All right, we'll remember this going forward. I could buy another brewer's kit, I guess. Yeah, you could. I'll let you keep the one that you're supposed to have. Like you should have. If it lets you start with a kit, then you have your kit. I'm not gonna take anything from you. Whatever the player's handbook says you should start your class with, then you have. Oh, you sold it. Well, in that case, I can't help you there. Gareth goes off. At this point, I know Gareth is sort of like always going to be going from place to place. If it has an Inquisition presence, he's always going to go towards it and see what he can see at this point. It's kind of what I'm gathering. So I kind of know that that's what he's wanting to do, and so he's going across the bridge, and that was a lot of fun because I got to kind of think about like what the bridge is for, and I say, oh yeah, there's a toll, to keep the lights on. And he pays the toll, and he talks to the person who runs runs the Inquisition. There's a small Inquisition office halfway across the bridge that's basically the toll booth to make sure everyone's paying their fees and to make sure nobody has any issues, like they're not smuggling anything. Yeah. No, it's Tiffany time. And he's the last one. I kind of wanted him to be the last one. I narrated him being the last one. I was like, oh, it's late at night, because I didn't want him to feel rushed, because I wasn't sure what he was going to try and do with the Inquisition office. I wasn't sure if he was going to try and fake his way inside and be like, oh yeah, I'm a captain. Here, let me poke around a bit. And they probably would have let him poke around a little bit. But it would have been a risk, because he wasn't sure if news of his wanted nature has come up to him at this point. So he didn't want to risk it necessarily. But I described like there's a young elf girl who's the teller behind the gate, that takes your 5 copper, and this is kind of the person that Gareth is communicating with to try and kind of get out some information. But I had a lot of fun because I was having him roll persuasion and stuff like that. And when he failed to roll certain persuasion checks, it wasn't like, oh, you fail. Oh, they know that you're a fugitive, and they immediately send the cops. It's like she just doesn't feel comfortable necessarily telling you one thing or the other, or maybe she misunderstands what you mean, and that was kind of fun to portray. There was a few situations where he asked her questions that obviously made sense to him and made sense to the rest of the party in the context of, I'm new, I'm a fugitive, I'm looking for transport to get out of here as soon as possible. But to the elf who didn't know these things, she kind of was thinking that maybe he was hitting on her a little bit, because he was asking like, first of all, he describes how he's walking up and he's like, oh, I'm wearing my casual stuff and it's unbuttoned a little bit. And so I had her roll like perception or something, or an investigation to kind of like read him, to kind of like see if he's like a little out of place or something. And she rolled really bad. So I was like, she's distracted. She's distracted by your open-breasted shirt. And that was just supposed to be kind of funny, but it kind of set the tone. It's all that it did. So yeah, it was fun. He was asking, I mean, yeah, he went, do you know any? It got worse and worse. First he was asking kind of like about, he was asking like, oh, how's the night going? And he was kind of like chatting her up, kind of like, oh, what's it like around here? And it was sort of like some kind of leading questions of like just trying to start idle conversation. He was doing it because he was then going to ask more about the, places around town. But once again, it was like out of context. It was just kind of like, oh, you're okay, yeah, sure, I can chat with you for a bit. Stranger who's relatively fine looking and also is seemingly not wearing a ring on their finger. So it was fun. But yeah, he asked like about transport. He asked a lot about the town. He asked about like city, like, oh, we're looking for transport maybe. And I felt bad because he rolled well in his persuasion, but it was like even the best rolls is still limited by reality, and she can only really offer Inquisition partnered things. So it was like, yeah, these are boats and they will take you where you want to go, but unfortunately those boats are wrapped up in going and getting Otto, who's still at Kirith with his garrison, and so those boats are kind of requisitioned right now. But then on top of that is like, even if you want to take those boats, there's going to be Inquisition officers on it as guards, and I don't know if you guys like that. If he had rolled higher, maybe she would have been willing to suggest private boats that aren't allied with the Inquisition, but like that would have been against her code of conduct for the Inquisition, recommending competition. So he didn't roll high enough for that. But then Gareth was like, oh, do you know any, like, she asked a leading question of like, I don't know who started. I think Gareth started it by accident. He was like saying, oh, do you know any nice places to eat? And it was very like, why would you ask that of a random stranger? Like, do you know any good places to eat? And obviously it was like, I did start it. I don't remember what it was. I think she said like, oh, do you want any, is there anything else that you anything else that you needed or wanted? Just kind of like recommending, because he was having a lot of conversations and he was being nice to this young woman, and it was fun to play it that way. And the persuasion checks were like good enough to kind of make Gareth come across as rather charming. And he's a captain. It's very funny. He's made a very like bachelor available character, but I don't think he's ready to. I don't think that he did it on purpose. But yeah, I did have the elf kind of like lead it, kind of being like, well, is there anything that you needed? Is there anything that you wanted? But it was just funny because his response was, before he kind of realized what was happening, was like, oh yeah, do you know any other places to eat or anything? Like, oh, do you know any good places to eat? And it was kind of like, the elf was like, oh, I didn't think I'd actually get this far. Like she kind of said it like kind of almost in a teasing sort of way. But the response that Gareth made ironically seemed like he was being receptive to her advances. And that was when the rest of the party was starting to lose their mind. Was not when like, yeah. That's what it was. I did the leading question of like of her kind of like teasing him a bit. And then he accidentally responded in a very like forward way of like, well, do you know any good places? Anything else you needed or wanted? And he's like, well, do you know any good places to eat? And she's like, oh my god, I didn't think I'd get this far. So she writes down like a place to eat and then also like her name and like slides it over to him with a little heart on it. It was very cute. I don't think Gareth's gonna do anything with it. I don't expect any of my players to romance any of the NPCs they meet along the journey. But it was fun and it was interesting. Exactly. And it made for cute art later and cute stories. No, dude, he's totally gone that day. Sure he is. I don't think Salty is the kind of person who would I've never seen him romance an NPC in a tabletop RPG game. And I'm not gonna make him. I don't want to make him feel like he has to either. He can do whatever he wants to do. That's up to him. He might not get the opportunity. Tiffany won't be hurt. I swear to you, I'll put my hand up to the fire. He's going to. Please don't make him. It was just an opportunity for... I don't know if he's going to get the chance because of things that happen later in the session. So I'm not going to hold him to it. I'm not going to describe a somber scene of Tiffany waiting for Gareth to call her in the morning or something. Excuse me. But yeah, he goes further into Queen's Landing, which surprised me. I was like, oh, you were actually paying the toll to go across. That's what he told me. Also, please do. We'll see. But he goes into Queen's Landing, and I was surprised by that. But he's like, well, I want to see if there's anything to buy. And I immediately warned him. I'm like, you're in a higher level area, dude. Watch out. You see people around, like there's armor sellers, and I'm not going to describe every single thing that you can buy in Queen's Landing, but like there's like just samurai armor. Like there's armor from faraway places. And I tried to describe like a few things that are like unique and very obviously exotic. And also well above his price range, just to kind of let him know that's like, yeah, this is someplace you can be. This is where you would get silvered weapons, which I think maybe you guys could afford. But I don't think you guys are necessarily ready for Major Queen's Landing unless you guys are ready to accept that there's like some risk with doing it, especially since the Inquisition fort is here. But he wants to go down to the fort. And I'm like, well, that's fine. It's not like you kind of get the understand, like you haven't been stopped at this point. So they probably don't know that Gareth's a wanted man. News probably hasn't come down yet. But soon. And I describe off in the distance, this is the reward for taking the risk and going into Queen's Landing, is I have him roll perception and stuff like that, and he sees the Kaiser, which is like the flagship of the Inquisition out in the harbor by the fortress. And I describe how that's the shipmasters, like the admirals, the sea captain himself, like a big player in the Inquisition. He's not the highest, he's not like crazy. He's not like the leader of the entire Inquisition, but he is the leader of like the sea division. And so it's very obvious that like, oh wow, there's big business. And so Gareth approaches the guard who's guarding the fort. It's late at night, and the main portcullis is closed, so it's just the side door essentially. And he talks to the guard, and I tell him, I'm like, this guard is like a level 10 fighter, just to let you know. And I don't mind telling him that because he has like a fighter skill that's like, if I spend a minute examining someone, I can tell a lot about him. Oh, am I dead? Yeah, why am I kind of dying? What's happening? What's going on with my session tonight? What's going on with my connection? Am I good over there? You had that? Am I stuttering? Oof. It's dying as we speak. It's just not stopping, huh? Oh, coconut. Meg, refresh your thing, and I might live again. Oh, it looks like I'm fine. Nothing. Am I good? I feel good. Huh. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's me. I don't think I can. The delay changed. What do you mean? What's the delay? I feel good. Do you mean the delay between my audio and my visual, or do you mean something else? No, the delay between me writing something in Twitch and it showing up on the stream. That tells me that it's server stuff and I have no control over it. That's what that tells me. Yeah, that's what that tells me. That tells me that I don't think I have any control. I've dropped 1% of frames, but I can't. I've been informed I just clapped on stream. Just to let you know what level of delay we're doing. I think I just switched servers is what happened there. I don't know. Well, I don't know. I'm not a smart enough person to figure that out. I'll just continue while I still have the time. Quick! Gareth goes to go into the fortress. He's talking to the guard, and he's trying to wrench information out of the guard. And so this is more persuasion checks, investigation checks, insight checks. They're counter-rolling insight, and he's sort of like trying to risk it for the biscuit. He's trying to decide, like, do I want to fake that I'm a captain from this fort? Because he might know that I'm not, and that'd be really bad. And so I'm like, well, I mean, you could try. And this is kind of like there's a mental checklist that I have where I'm like, if he does this, he'll get this information. If he gets this, he'll get this information. So it's like a puzzle almost. And so he risks it. He's like, oh, yeah, I see that the Kaiser's in, huh? And the guard falls for it because I'm like, the guard, I already decided, I was like, the guard would not know whether or not Gareth is a real captain or not. He's wearing the garb. That's all that this guy knows. But Gareth didn't know that. So Gareth had to be willing to take that risk. And he did. And he got his reward. And so the guy was willing to talk about like, oh, yeah, the Kaiser is coming to port. The shipmaster's here. And I don't want to spoil too much on stream, even though this is the secret. But Gareth's trying to figure out like if there's certain NPCs that have come with that he would know about. And so the lieutenant doesn't know exactly who, but he describes a few people, and Gareth's like, maybe that might be them, maybe it might not be them. But he kind of cools it at that. He has the opportunity to go into the fort. He's essentially said all the right things to trick this lieutenant guard into thinking that he's really a captain from this fort. So the captain opens the door, or the lieutenant opens the door, and he's like, oh, did you want to come in? Sorry, I didn't mean to keep you. And Gareth has to kind of decide, like, do I want to go into this fort that's definitely high level, and all of these inquisitors are the best of the best who could, like, maybe I could fight one of them, but not all of them. Like, not all of them. I said, like, oh, even the mouse that steals some cheese off of the table is higher level than you. Just because it's Queen's Landing, and I did not anticipate that the party would be kind of exploring it until later. And I kind of asked them what they would like, and they're like, yeah, I feel like it'd be fun if there are certain areas that are just straight up higher level than we are prepared for. And that way we can feel the progression, and we can feel like, oh, that way they can, if they wanted to, they could risk going into a higher level area for good reward. They wanted to live in a world where it did not bow to them and did not auto level itself to them. That there were certain places that were guaranteed to be higher level, fixed forever, so they could decide if they wanted to take risks, go in, get extra information, get extra treasures. LMAO, yeah, you walk into the room and every NPC has a red glowing skull over their head. Yeah, I think that is how I described it. Yeah, it was like, I didn't want to mince meat. I didn't want to I wanted to be very blatant when the player was in a risky zone, because they would know. The player would know, the character would know, everyone would know, and that's drama. That's why I play. That way, when the player, make the decision to go in anyway, oh, then it's delicious. Oh, it's delicious. When the players know the risk, and then they can make informed decisions one way or the other, and they still want to take the risk, oh, it's delicious. That's why I play. Hey, if I'm wearing a set of clothes, should it weigh in my inventory? Yeah, but not much. Like, everything, there's, like, 3 or 4 different kinds of clothes. I'll look them up later. It's, like, fancy, noble clothes. It's, like, day clothes, noble clothes, entertainer's garb, or entertainer's costume. It's 2 pounds. Yeah, it's, like, it's not supposed to weigh a lot. I just wanted to know if I'm wearing them, if it still weighs. Yeah, it still eats up, because, like, armor weighs stuff, even if you're wearing it, so clothes do too. So, yeah. It's not that big a deal, though. It's just, I don't think you'll ever be 2 pounds over encumbered. Oh yeah, leather armor might be tough. I know it's leather armor in that, like, you're not really wearing leather armor. You can make your character whatever way you want in my game. You can use transmog, if that makes any sense. But it still weighs whatever it's supposed to weigh. Unfortunately, I have to maintain that just for balance sake. It's transmogs, but it keeps the stats, including the including the negative weight. But yeah, Gareth decides not to take that. He takes the risk of feigning being a captain from this fort, but he's not willing to go the extra mile to actually go into the fort, which is probably for the best. He decides to go like, no, I'm fine. I have some other place to stay for the night. Have a good one. And he basically leaves, and he's like, oh my god, trying to like not be killed. I never checked the stats on it. Oh, okay, we'll check the stats now. It's supposed to be like some level of base AC plus your dexterity, which I don't think you have any. But you know, leather armor has like, I don't know. It's 11, 12, or 13. It's one of those. 11, 12, or 13. Rude, it's 11, and I have +2. Damn, really? A +2 dexterity? As a dwarf? As a warlock? All right, fine, yeah, cool. It's awesome. You got good AC then. You got 13 fucking AC as a caster. That's hot. Damn. I'm impressed. Brughild may have like one less charisma than the other casters, but she more than makes up for it in other ways. And I'll give you mage armor. Mage armor, I don't know how mage armor works. Is it a buff? Is it a addition to your existing AC, or does it replace your existing AC? I don't know. I really don't. That's just what the hags had as a spell in a tome in one of the secret occult rooms. I did not plan ahead. AC becomes 13 plus dex mod. Base AC becomes 13. Not bad. That's what mage armor does, huh? That's sweet. That's pretty good. So yeah, that's good. That's one of those situations where like I just want to survive and I might need to like partially tank for a moment. Cool. Yeah, Gareth leaves. He also did some purchasing. He went to some stores, but I can't wear armor. Oh, you gotta take off the leather armor. Okay, that's rough. Okay. But he goes to some stores. I have fun. I send out a PDF of. I just have one Google Doc and I just update it with different. I put like the location in a heading so that people can just scroll to it on a bar on the left, so it's easily organized. And then I just say the stuff that's unique to that area. Because we're playing a medieval game where there's no Amazon shipping. So like if you want something from someplace, you have to go there. So it's the best way to organize it. But there's a few extra stuff there in Queen's Landing. I came up with these things called charms, which were just like they're small buffs and upgrades. They're kind of just like magic trinkets, and it's not like an original concept besides just me giving myself permission to divorce magical effects from the item that they might like come with. So like in a dungeon, you might find armor that has featherfall built in, and all I've done really is I've just ripped the featherfall out of the armor that you might find in a dungeon, and I put it on a charm. And the idea is that if you buy this charm, you're going to slap it on whatever you want, and you can keep the armor that you have or the weapon that you have, and you can just upgrade it over time. They take attunement so that they can only ever have 3 because they require attunement. But they're just low-level magic items. They give like +1 to a stat, you know, like +1 AC while you have the weapon out that has this charm attached to it. Or they're like, oh, I'm resistant to cold damage while I'm wearing a piece of garment that has the charm attached to it. And I gave little descriptions for them and everything. You know, it's optional lore stuff. The players can just pay attention to what it does, or they can read a little bit and be like, oh, charms are from this country, huh? I try to keep it short. I try to keep it below like 3 lines of dialogue, three sentences. Little descriptions of like what material they made out, just to entice the imagination, and make them feel more real. But I like the charms. They're fun things to aspire to. They're pretty expensive. I don't think the party's gonna be able to buy anything anytime soon. But I wanted to bring home the fact that this is Queen's Landing, and more interesting stuff can be found here than just spell components and swords. Like these old charms that can upgrade your existing equipment. Also, I know that my party is very attached to their weapons and armor and their equipment that they started the game with, because they're in it for the drama and the RP, and like Gareth likes his sword, and I know that it would be foolish of me to try and get like, if I cleared a dungeon and they open up a chest and it has a +2 greatsword at the end in the chest, Gareth wouldn't take it and he wouldn't use it because he is attached to his greatsword. That's the one he knows and loves, and the one that he would continually use in character. Yeah, we don't want to play Diablo with our gear. I completely understand. I'm the same exact way, and so in my games, I try to divorce upgrades from finding a new version, and I try to just be like, like instead of finding a new greatsword at the end of a dungeon, he might find like a charm that he can put on his sword and upgrade it that way. I like the idea that you can make a +1 weapon from one of your own weapons that you brought with you. That I like it when characters get sentimental. Maybe they'll find new pieces of equipment that that feels really cool and interesting. But Dark Souls style, yeah. Get your bring in your +15 the Zweihander to fucking fight Gwyn with. I like that. I like that feeling. I think everybody else does too. My players are very attached to their stuff, and that's fine. I want them to be, because then it'll be much more dramatic when it gets lost or broken or stolen. What else? That's kind of really all that happened. The party kind of reconvened eventually at the inn. It took some time. We went back and forth through everybody. Gareth did some shopping. I had fun RPing, just like the shopkeep. He has a potion there that in the PDF in the store, it was a mystery potion. And it was just sort of like, oh, well, it has a vague description, and maybe you can buy it and test it, or maybe you can roll Arcana in the store to figure out what it does, but I don't want to put it in the description. So Gareth is like, is that potion here? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, can I look at it? And he was kind of like, well, why wouldn't the shopkeeper just know what it does? But I had thought of that, unfortunately for him. So I describe how the shopkeeper's like, I don't know what it does. I just got it the other day from an adventurer who dropped it off and sold it to me. I know it's something powerful, but I haven't had the chance to research it yet or identify it. If you want to buy it, I'll sell it to you cheap, but I'm not going to guarantee that it works or is not harmful. And that's Gareth kind of being like, God damn, I thought he'd be able to tell me. But he rolled Arcana on it, and he rolled really well, and so I kind of vaguely described to him, like, it has something to do with memory. It has something to do with kind of like affecting people's memory, but he doesn't know how many people or for how long or for what duration or how far back it affects memory. And it's probably only temporary, but it's just something to think about, some powerful thing. Q Brookill is finding a new magic book and chucking her current one. Yeah, just throw it right over the corner. Yeah, stuff like that. I think like I'll probably let players find like trinkets, like necklaces or bracelets or gloves, maybe a new breastplate for Gareth, but only if it matches the aesthetic that he's already going for. But we'll see. It's got to be dramatic. It's got to be satisfying. But yeah, Gareth tries to figure out what this potion does. Maybe we'll come back to that potion. Maybe we won't. But yeah, everyone reconvenes and kind of tries to figure out what they're doing. Gareth is kind of shook because he's like, whoa, the Kaiser's here. And that probably means that there's bigwigs who are going to be on Winthrow, and maybe some of them I know, and I'm not quite sure. So he's kind of wigged out by that. The rest of the party's like, okay, well, we're going to spend some time here. Tomorrow we're going to have to figure out what about transport. Maybe money, shop around, see if we can find some place to get to Cape Solman, either by land or by sea on the cheap, and also away from Inquisition, which is good. I kind of had them roll investigation to I wanted them to kind of have a rough idea of how long they had before their fugitive status catches up with them, and they rolled really well, and I was like, oh shit, okay. You have like 2 free days, like two days, and then whoever knows that you guys are fugitives is going to have finally had time to print out the wanted posters and spread it throughout the city, and then you guys are going to have to actually be like sneaky. We have 2 free days. And so the party can plan accordingly. And that's kind of where we left off, almost. We almost left off there. Everybody goes to bed. We wake up in the next morning. I ain't afraid to use disguise self. Yeah, there's people in this party who are good at stealthing and are good at coming up with cool plans, and so I want to make sure that they have opportunity to do that. So, I mean, this game was pitched to them as a fugitive game, so they made characters that are good at being fugitives, so I can't wait for us to do that. I warned Gareth that he shouldn't rely on Inquisition help. Yeah, it's very funny that you say that. Azarine has a heart-to-heart with Gareth. She tries to apologize for using Detect Thoughts on him on the boat, but it kind of fails because he barely remembers. But eventually he does remember, but it seems like Gareth is not really that perturbed by it, and he just seems to be kind of more like, more worried about Azarine, because Azarine seems to be very concerned, and this is kind of a reveal that Azarine doesn't always have control over her own magic, at least when she levels up and gets a new spell for the first time, she definitely doesn't. I'm probably going to have to go recover his dumbass. Yeah, but that was very cute because Gareth is kind of like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Here, have a carved duck, and gives Azarine like a carved duck. So now there's a picture of Azarine like holding a duck, being like, but I was the one who fucked up. Why are you giving me a gift? But it was kind of fun because it was kind of this, it was a nice promise between Gareth and Azarine that's sort of like, no, we're on the same side. I'm not going to, like, I understand you did that by accident. It's no big deal. We're moving on. And we have bigger fish to fry. Don't worry, rubber ducky. Stop laughing every time I say bigger fish to fry. It's not funny. But that was nice, yeah. But then that was before Gareth went out and found out the Inquisition has Kaiser. I'm fish! Found out the Kaiser was here. What was the guy's name? Doman? Was the Shipmaster Doman, I think is what it was. Strong, relaxed syllable sounding name. But anyway, unfortunately, in the night, we wake up the next day and everyone's having breakfast and it's revealed that Gareth is gone and he has gone somewhere. Everyone of course is like, God damn it, he left. He's gonna go to the Inquisition and either turn himself in or he's gonna do something stupid like he did last time when he tried to talk to Otto to get information. Except this time around, there's not gonna be an Otto there to give him the benefit of the doubt or non-verbal permission to be a fugitive. And so Azrine's angry about it. She's like, I told him that he doesn't need the Inquisition. And so everyone's concerned that he's gonna go to the Inquisition. He texted me later that night, like almost later that night is in like a minute or two, like a few minutes. He texted me kind of what he was planning. And after he texted me what he was planning, I warned him like verbally. I was like, if you really are doing what I think you're doing, you might die because the Kaiser is like level 15 area zone. If you're actually trying to sneak aboard the Kaiser or whatever. And I just straight up told him, I was like, listen, man, you can do whatever Gareth would do. But like he really might die because this time around it's not DM's not trying to goad you into talking with Otto and having this heart to heart, and it really is just Gareth doing his own thing. This isn't a test, and I warned the player ahead of time. I was like, you do whatever you want to do, but I'm not gonna be able to pull punches. You might die if you try to like approach the shipmaster or something. He's like, no, I'm not planning necessarily on doing that, and he kind of explained exactly what he was trying to do and how he was going to accomplish it. And I was like, well, that might cost something, but I'm not really that worried as much about Gareth as I was at the beginning of that. I actually, upon hearing his actual plan, I'm actually like, oh, okay, well, that's actually not that crazy then, to be honest with you. That's actually got a reasonable chance of, it might not be a reasonable chance of success, but it's not necessarily a reasonable chance of failure. Like, the failure state won't necessarily be death. I don't think that what he wants to accomplish is still going to be easy, but if he fails to accomplish the success state, he's not going to be immediately killed. If that makes any sense. So I'm not actually that worried. The thing he wants to do is I'm kind of like, he doesn't need to be this dramatic because the rest of the party in character and out of character is like, motherfucker is going to get himself killed. But ironically, his plan is actually like relatively tame. It's still risky, but that's playing the game, right? But it's just sort of like funny how over the top it is. He's like, I'm gone in the morning, and it's like, you really could have done this after breakfast. Like, you didn't have to. I know, but he is constantly going on about like wanting Gareth to die. I think he's just being facetious. I think he's just excited to be playing in a campaign where the DM has explicitly said death is a possibility. And not only that, but he trusts that if he were to die, it would be under a dramatic. Brookill looped back to not caring. Azrine is the angry one. I know, the horror. But I think he's just excited to be in a campaign that has a DM that's willing to kill him, but is probably going to try and favor killing him in a satisfying, dramatic way. But I kind of warned him. I was like, if you try to sneak aboard the Kaiser, I can't guarantee it'll be dramatic when a bunch of guards spear you down in one turn with multi-attack. But he kind of was like, no, I'm not necessarily going to do this, that, or the other thing. So I'm excited to see what happens when we pick up. I'm just going to pick up with Gareth. The thing he wants to do is going to take only probably about 5 to 10 minutes, and he'll either succeed immediately or he'll fail immediately. There really is not an in-between. Not to imply that failure will be a dramatic failure and he'll be killed instantly, but it's like, he'll know immediately if he thinks he can pull it off or not, is kind of what I'm trying to come down to. Or if he can pull it off, what level of chance there is in his actual success therein. So. And I assumed Azrine and the rest of the party would at least be vaguely looking for him during the course of the day. But I don't even know if what he wants to do exactly is possible. Because if it involved the Kaiser, I did describe the Kaiser like leaving that night. So he might be sorely disappointed to find out that the next day the Kaiser's not in port anymore because it went downriver. I don't know if that's what he's looking for. I hope not, but we'll see. It's not going to be back until later anyway. Or unless he's implying that he left so early in the day that he's going to try and catch up with the Kaiser before it leaves Queen's Landing proper, and he's going to try and hop aboard or something. I don't know. I don't think he's really going to try and go aboard the Kaiser. But we'll see. I have to talk to him more specific about what his plan is. I'll probably send him a message later tonight. But yeah, I mean, any player is welcome to do some kind of crazy, insane plans like this. I'm kind of happy that he's willing to take advantage of the free leniency that which is provided by this game. As long as he understands that it might end in his... One, I mean, it might end in his death. But two, it's also like, listen, like the party might not be willing to leave you alone if you keep running off on your own and doing these crazy things. So as long as you're ready for the in-character ramifications of your party, like slowly not being able to feel like they can leave you alone. Once again, it depends on what he wants to do. It might turn out he just wants to go down to the pier and look through some binoculars and just enjoy a lovely loaf of bread. And he's just being dramatic for the sake of pulling people's legs. But then he'll have to deal with the player out of character ramifications of doing that. So no matter what, he has to, he's just taking Tiffany on a beautiful morning walk. He very well might be. He might be fucking with everybody. That being said, there's still ramifications with fucking for people, like for fucking with people. There's still ramifications for that. So even if that is what he wants to do, I'll just be like, well, your fellow party members are gonna kill you for it. So, but we'll see. I think I know what he wants to do. I think it's much more tame than last time. I think I don't really know what's gonna happen. This is actually just me guessing, and so I don't really feel like sharing. I think what's gonna end up happening is that like when the party reconvenes, it'll be the situation where it's like, why didn't you let us know you're leaving? Or why didn't you ask us to come? And I think Gareth's response is going to be like, it wasn't that risky, and I didn't think, like, and you weren't going to let me do it. Like, you're going to tell me not to do it, even though it wasn't that high risky, and it wasn't that big of a deal. I think that's what the response is going to, I think that's how it's going to go. I think they're going to be like, why didn't you tell us, and why didn't you take us? And he's just going to be like, because it wasn't that big of a deal, and also you were just going to tell me not to do it anyway, so that's how I feel it's going to go. But like I said, in character ramification. Azarine's mad at him now, so he's going to have to deal with that. I think that's everything. Everything else was pretty fine. The one was a heavily planned session of on the boat. It was literally on rails. Well, not literally on rails, but they were on a boat. They didn't really have any choice but to go downriver. They were kind of subject to whatever content I had prepared, random or otherwise. And I think it went well. I was pretty happy when I cut certain stuff that was unnecessary. Like, for example, going to the possibly getting lost on the way back to the steamship after getting the lumber. It was like, that wasn't necessary. That we already had enough of that. And also, like, the really medium rolls, or like, it wasn't anything resounding successful and wasn't anything resounding failure. And so me only doing one of them, like, only one of, like, I guess Brookild and Gareth get swamped by, like, I wasn't gonna have everybody roll athletics again and see if they get swarmed again. You guys are just there now. And then me cutting out, like, doing that multiple times, like, was planned, because it turned out to it just wasn't. On paper, it was like, this is just not as fun as I thought it would be. It was fun once. It was fun for what we did. And I'm like, cool, it's now time to move on to the next thing. And I'm glad I did that. That was a good thing that I did. I think the party had fun shredding kobolds. Like I said, it was fine and fun with the cloud of daggers. I think I played it in a fun way. It was not played in a fair way. That was unfair against the kobolds. That was not fair of me as the DM. But it was funny. And it was fun. And like I said, I knew that the fight was going to be more about fighting off wave after wave of kobolds. So having one less kobold at the beginning of every round didn't really change the balance all that much, but it was funny and entertaining. And it did mean that Azarine and Valerie were going to be able to do it just a duo of them, rather than needing Brookild or Gareth, and having three while the one person felt left out. This way it felt actually more balanced. So ironically, it ended up being more fun on the way it went. So I was happy with that. Will I do it again? Probably not. I don't think I'll have. I'm probably not going to have characters roll like intelligence checks to see if they run into spells in the future. I'll just be able to decide on the spot, like, is this somebody who would know better or not know better? And I don't think we're going to fight kobolds again, just because we're the party's beyond that. Even fighting kobolds now was just kind of like an homage to D&D, because we kind of skipped levels 1, 2, and 3. We're just like level 4 now almost. Gareth is still level 3. We did some level 3 stuff, but we're level 4 now. So I wanted to get some kobolds in there before we grossly out-leveled beyond them, but it was not really needed. It's not really like a dramatic fight. I'm not actually thinking that they're going to get killed by kobolds at any point. That's not a legitimate challenge. But it was fun to get the goblins in. It was fun to get the wargs in and the hobgoblins and the kobolds while we could. And we'll have more traditional D&D character class races and monsters show up in later episodes. So I'm glad we had the homage to kobolds, and we did. I'm glad that on Bridge Run, I'm glad I put as much planning into it as I did. I planned as much as I needed to in order to react to whatever the players might have wanted to do. And if they didn't want to do anything, which is usually the scarier thing, I still had some stuff that I could force upon them if they chose not to do anything. But there's always that, like, if you choose not to do anything, there's less content for you to do. So then that's fine. That was it is what it is. It went well. Tiffany was fun. It's fun when we have random NPC interactions. It was fun. Gareth sweating outside of the fortress, trying to figure out if he wanted to take the biscuit for the biscuit or not. It was fun, Brukil looking at the opera house and being able to describe like things of beauty and things like that. And it was fun having a little dance session and music number with Azarine and Valerie. And they made a lot of money, and I think they're very, very happy with that. I think that they're more than satisfied with, like, well, we didn't do this much this session, but we made bank. And we got to be bards. Like, they both made bards because they want to be bards. What's more bardy than being in a tavern and playing for a crowd of people? We'll see what happens next time. It'll depend on what they want to do. It's going to be we pick up a numbers run the next day, and we'll figure out what Gareth's cunning plan is and whether or not that succeeds or fails. And if it succeeds, then we'll resume with like the party probably trying to go to Cape Solomon, or Solomon. And then, or if he fails, then it'll probably become the Gareth break out of jail session or the Gareth's funeral session. One or the other. Depending on what he wants to do. Like I said, even I don't really know what he wants to do. He might have some very tame plan, and it's just a very dramatic way of leaving. Or he might be suicidal. We'll find out. He's going out for donuts, yeah. He's going to come back with like his, oh, I got orange juice for everybody. But yeah, there's really not much more for me to say. This has been an hour and 46-minute stream. We got 2 of them done. On Tuesday, I'm probably going to do more original stuff. I'm pretty happy with the homebrew tabletop RPG that I'm making. The one that's going to be a little bit more focused around like a balanced party of like tank, healer, DPS. And has a little bit more leeway in the abilities that you can make, because I want people to be able to make their own classes, essentially. Like, oh, I want the Barbarian's Rage and the Bard spellcasting, and let me get a little bit of Druid shapeshifting, and I want people to be able to kind of like make their own thing. It's just his morning jog, like any good jock. Yeah, that'll be very funny. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be fun. I'm pretty happy with the other homebrew thing. That's probably what we're going to do on Tuesday. Maybe we'll play a game. Who knows? At this point, I feel like I've kind of cemented myself in as D&D and chill person. And I'm cool with that. I actually quite enjoy just talking to the camera and having a microphone here. Delicious. I'm going to get going. It is almost 9 o'clock, and unfortunately I have many more things to do in my day before tomorrow where I work. So farewell. Don't do that to my ears ever again. You're not going to like my licking ASMR channel then. Farewell, goodbye, bye-bye, bye-bye.